Hey y'all, today we are talking New Year's Day, January 1st, 2025, and Berryessa. There was very light traffic out there on the water. Markley Cove was closed down. I don't know what else, but we do know that Steel Park was open and Spanish Flat was open, and that's where we went.
Yeah, no other boats launched at Spanish Flats that day either.
Not that we saw. We left before our boats, and when we went in the water, there was none, and when we came back out, there was none. Who knows if they fished less hours than us?
Right.
But it was definitely worth it because we got 3 hours alone at least with no boat waves inside the Narrows. So
yeah,
that was
a great
pretty
day.
Cool. Water temperature is still in the, high 50s, I think it is?
Mid 50s.
Mid 50s, somewhere around there, 55, 56, 57, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Conditions were just not quite slick calm, but it was beautiful out there.
Light rain.
A little bit of light rain, a little drizzle on there in the afternoon. So we'll get into it. We started off actually in the Capel Cove area.
Yeah.
Didn't go very far at all. Saving fuel, you know.
Yeah.
I think you picked up a fish first, I think.
Yeah. We saw some fish on like a hump underwater off of point. We threw an A-rig over them a couple times, and they were following but not really committing at that point in time. And so I picked up the trusty Ned rig. I picked up the big turd, which is the 4-inch, I think it is. Goby Bryant and the deal in the 4-inch TRD, big turd, Z-Man, and just threw it out there, bouncing it up the hill. Just like you'd throw a jig.
On a rock point.
Yeah, rock point. And it just got inhaled, right? Like that.
Yeah, just loaded up.
Super heavy. Go ahead, set the hook. And it was there.
Yeah, and then I did get some bites on the good old trusty A-rig. We'll get back to what's on this A-rig, but did get some bites on there, nothing that great. Then we moved off of that spot. The reason why we went there is it was stacked in there before for him, and they had kind of moved. So it's that time of the year where they are constantly moving. Just because you find them, they may not be in that cove if you're on the shallower bite. If you're on the offshore bite stuff, they kind of stick around. Went to another one of the popular coves out there, and went back into the back of a cove, and one of my casts, I cast this A-rig out because we could see fish around.
Yeah.
And on the fall, a nice decent spot picked it up, a couple pound spot, picked it up and was actually swimming back at me. I had to catch up to it. And then you picked up a jerkbait because we could see fish but not getting to go.
Yeah, so I picked up a mega bass, 110 junior +1 in cherry spawn, threw it with forward-facing sonar. They just did not care.
No.
But they kind of looked at it, but they didn't care. I changed colors. I went to a Tennessee shad in the mega bass 110 +1, and first cast up shallow, it got smacked, and then the fight was on, and just everybody's been asking about, do we ever catch trout?
Well, we caught trout.
We caught a trout. It was a decent trout, and if watching in the video, you can see that it gave me a little fight, jumping out of the water. I never touched it. I released it in the water because I wanted him to survive. So
yeah, we weren't going to take them home and eat them because we had enough going on.
Yeah.
We kind of determined that those fish that were back up in there were a mixture of trout and bass. So then we pulled out deeper and actually went to some little like rock patch out there.
Yeah.
And picked up some more fish on the A-rig, but only a couple of them.
That was like 30 foot of water too, right?
Yeah, around 30 foot of water in there. And then the other thing, he picked up that Ned rig again and started dragging that around. and got hit on that and picked up some decent smallmouth and some other stuff.
Some largemouth there too.
And then we kind of were thinking like, okay, maybe we had gone up the week before, but maybe they're way different. So we ran back to an area inside the Narrows that, if you guys have watched the 45-minute video, it's the same cove.
Yeah.
We went inside there, and you had Ned rig on.
Yeah.
And he started picking up fish on a Ned rig, and then I finally broke down, and I picked up the Bass Union darter head in the 1/0 hook, and then it's actually 3/16 head. And I picked up good old Margarita Mutilator in the 4-inch worm. Started dragging that around while he's dragging around that Ned rig, and started picking up fish. So what we were basically figuring out was they wanted to be to the bottom. Probably could run it like a jig. You could run stuff like that. You just want something that was on the bottom. And then we kind of grew from there. Like now we really started catching fish.
Yeah, started moving point to point to point, and we're catching fish that were the longer points with rock on it, right? And just bouncing the Ned rig. He was throwing that darter head, and it was a good time. Like,
yeah, nothing large sized wise, but
No.
definitely consistent fish. And then what we really wanted to see on that rock was the actual, like, you see the point go out and then see the stair steps off with that rock. Those stair step points seem to be a lot better, and I think that's just there's something for them to be able to move up and down, nice something to cuddle with. We screwed around with that for a little while.
yeah,
And then on the second point, that is.
right.
And then before we moved points, you actually picked up the A-Rig.
Yep.
And the A-Rig colors we were running was bluegill flash and rainbow shad. And that's 3.8s on the main baits and 3.3 teasers. Did you have any other colors on there?
I threw 3.3s and 2.8s.
Oh, sorry. These are 3.3s. I accidentally said 3.6. It's 3.3s and 2.8s.
Yeah, but I did throw some thread fin on there just to give it something different. And on mine, I was throwing the 3.8s on the middle one, that bigger bait. It's a little further back than all the rest of them. Sometimes I feel like that helps out that bite, right? But I was definitely making sure I had a bluegill flash on there. I felt like the bluegill flash, out of the last couple times we've been up there, has been more of a reliable or consistent bite. So the bluegill flash was one that I was definitely putting on there. But
we also had darker clouds at that point too.
Yeah.
So that darkness, I think that really bright colors with all that darkness throws them off. You can see them almost not react to the A-Rig.
Right.
Compared to when you throw the bluegill flash on there, you throw that darker color, they'll at least come up and follow it, even if they're like, in the day we're talking about, was in not that great of a mood for them to be overly active.
right,
They typically wanted something on the bottom. But they were willing to come up for it a lot more if you had that darker bait than the lighter bait.
yeah, the
brighter
profile.
bait.
And we kind of figured that out too, just playing around. You were throwing a bait for a forward-facing sonar.
I was throwing a
cricket tickler.
Cricket tickling bait.
And I picked up one that was a bluegill color. Like, he wasn't getting much attention, and I threw that bluegill color out, and they immediately came up after it. Not that I caught any fish on it.
Yeah, they did not eat it.
But you could definitely tell that reaction was different for that darker color, and it kind of clued me into throwing the darker Ned rigs or throwing the bluegill flash on the A-Rig.
Yeah, so picking up that. Then we moved off of that point. As we were, like I said, we were covering, in between points, we were throwing that A-Rig. And then we go down to the next point, and boom, there's more fish.
Yeah.
Again, I'm still throwing the Bass Union darter head, weedless darter head with the Margarita Mutilator. He's still throwing his Gobi Bryant and all that, his 4-inch TRD. And then basically I was kind of feeling like I could watch the fish go down with my bait, and they weren't coming back up with it when they were earlier.
Yeah.
And that darkness had got even darker. So I'm like, well, I need to change something up. And that's when I picked up the Morning Dawn Chartreuse Tail 4-inch robo worm and put that on there, and then basically was dead sticking it.
Yeah.
I'd cast it out there, let it dead stick. I'd give it a little bit of shakes and shimmies and stuff like that to kind of just be, hey, I need attention down here. And then they just pick it up. I don't think I ever felt a thump. They just had mush.
Yeah.
For pretty much the whole day. I did have one eat on the way down with the darter head, but what's the bite for the TRD for you?
Most of the time it was mush. There was a couple times on the outside point. There was one that popped it good, and I set the hook, and it started out toward deep water. It felt really good, but
yeah,
came off.
But
there was a couple where they popped hard or they took off running with it. But most of the time it was that, like you pick it up and you're like, man, that feels like I'm going through grass or something. It was definitely different. And if it feels like that, you need to swing on it. Especially those, throwing the turd with the smaller hooks that I was throwing on there. I could get them out of pretty much anything down there. Like I was throwing a 4-inch bait, right? And my hook was coming out of the bait right here, and they were swallowing.
Yeah, they were getting hook on it.
Yeah, they were getting hooked. But with it that small, I was able to get out of a lot of the rocks and stuff down there.
Yeah.
But they were definitely eating the Ned rig.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I like to throw this darter head. I feel like on this darter head, I have more contact with the bottom. I can feel better on the bottom. It's just a preference thing. It's tomato on that.
Yeah.
You can use either one of them, but I do definitely prefer that darter head, the Bass Union darter head. And again, I was throwing the 3/16 ounce. I typically throw the 1/8 ounce. I actually stepped up so I could get a little bit more casting, and then I was fishing deeper water than typical, down to like 30 plus feet.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to get it down there faster and not wait forever for it to drag down.
Forever.
Overall, decent day. I think our overall bag was like 13 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark.
Right in there.
We were just going for numbers, knocking it out. We weren't heading out for any big heads or anything like that.
Yeah, we caught probably 20 plus fish.
Yeah, we caught over 20 fish. I forgot what the count was. It's like 20 to 25 fish, somewhere in that ballpark.
Just a good day.
And half of that was in water that wasn't even productive. So
yeah, and being New Year's, we didn't wake up early to go out there either.
No, we did not. So basically, keep moving water is the overall of that. And then once you run across them, they're going to be schooled up with that. And don't be afraid to drag something on the bottom if they're not willing to come up after an A-rig or something like that.
Right.
So is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Go out and get some fish.
Right now is a really great time if you can get on to Berryessa. There's not many boats out there.
Yeah.
There's Solano County Water is the website that you go to find out for your washout, if you want to do the washout on your boat. And enough with that boring stuff.
Yeah.
So until next time, I hope you get them.
Feels decent. He wrecked it too. I don't know what it is. It's not a giant. Spotopotamus. Good spot. 262. I thought it was gonna be a baby. Shaking it. Obviously, it was looking at me though.
What the fuck you got me?
Put that darker worm on.
Those guys hit.
Neck.
Nah.
Doesn't even feel heavy yet. No.
Jigging me. The striper. Better than the last one.
That was a decent fish.
Neck.
Maybe.
$284.
Big of a day with
Smallmouth.
smallmouth. Little buddy. Oh, he's the dink of the day.
Holy smoke.
That is the current dink of the day, baby. Woo! White, white, white.